What's going on, Game of Empires community? How are you guys doing? Hope very well. Today I've got a beginner's guide for you, so let's just get straight into it. Of course, the first thing you're ever going to have to do in the game is choose your starting civilization. You'll get a civilization chit, I think it's called, or civilization, I forget exactly what it's called, but it allows you to change your civilization, so if you feel like changing it later on, you can do that for free one time. And so which starter civilization should you really choose? Well, the only thing that really matters for the starting civilization that you choose is the hero that comes along with that civilization, because since you start out with a civilization change item later on, you can change your civilization to choose the unique unit that you want the most, because each civilization has their own unique units and unique research that goes along with those units. So besides choosing your unique unit, the only difference each civilization makes is changing the starter hero that you start with. So the civilization that I recommend you start with the most, due to the starting hero of that civilization being the best option compared to the other civilization starting heroes, the one I recommend you start with is Britannia, because cavalry is pretty much the meta unit, meaning that the game facilitates cavalry units the most, as in there's easier ways to get good legendary cavalry heroes compared to getting any of the other unit legendary heroes. So for example, you can get Hanzo and Temujin. They're both legendary heroes, and you can get them through spending a little bit of money with microtransactions. You can easily get their hero badges, which lets you make pretty good cavalry armies pretty early on into the game. So for that reason, it's easier to buff up good cavalry armies compared to buffing up good archer or infantry armies. So that kind of makes cavalry armies the meta. Of course, with that being said, going against that meta means you're going to be countering cavalry if you choose infantry. If you choose infantry, you'll be countering the meta, which means I don't know. That's an option. That's an option. You can try to counter the meta if you want, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and it's going to take more investment and strategy. But for beginners, especially, I recommend you start out with Britannia so you can get Edward, and then you won't really want the longbowmen unique units. You'll want Russia's unique units, the Cossacks, and Russia has really good unique unit research. So I recommend you start with Britannia so you can get Edward, and then later on switch to Russia if you're going a cavalry build. Or if you're going an infantry or archer build, then Mulan is a good archer hero to start out with. And I haven't... Actually, we can do this. Let's just do this. Let's go over here. Take a look at civilizations. If you wanted to start out with an archer, or if you wanted to do an archer build, then Mulan is a really good archer hero. But does she have good bonuses? Increased attackable garrison, increased normal attack damage. So you would be really good defensive-wise. With Mulan, you would have a really strong garrison, and you would have increased normal attack damage. So that's pretty good. But anyway, I won't go over the specifics of this too much. If you want to choose an archer or infantry army, then you can just go to goe.fandom.com and go to the civilization section and take a look at all the different civilizations and see which one gives you the bonuses that you're most interested in for the units that you want to build for. Okay, so hopefully that puts you on the right track for picking a good civilization. I know I probably didn't explain that perfectly, but as I'm doing this one unscripted, and I usually do my videos scripted, please just give me a little break there. Okay, so next, let's talk about... Sorry, 1 second. Oops. Oh no, it's falling apart. Explore, main page. Next we're going to talk about units. So, if you've played any of these similar games, then you already are fully aware of how the unit counters work. But we can pop into the barracks right here and take a look at the counters. Cavalry counters archers, and archers counter infantry, and infantry counters cavalry. Um, each unit type has their own special abilities, which are basically just passives that give them different stats. But you really don't need to pay attention to that too much because each unit stats are reflected on their stat sheet, and this just kind of uh, is what signifies the difference between each unit's types of stats, if that makes sense. So, like, infantry have the most defense, and one of these probably says infantry have more defense. Yeah, has higher defense. So you don't really need to pay attention to these. They're just like kind of flavor text. What you really need to be looking at is the stats. Infantry has the highest defense. Archers have the highest attack, and cavalry have middle tier defense and middle tier attack, and all units have the same HP. So if you wanted to build for archers, you would probably want to boost up your attack as much as possible because archers have the highest base attack, which means they get the highest percentage bonus from attack increases. And going an archer build, your focus would be to deal probably as much damage as you possibly could. If you want an infantry build, your goal would probably be to garrison yourself and take advantageous fights because you would be on the defense, and defense always is advantageous compared to being on offense. And then if you choose cavalry build, you'll have the highest mobility, you'll have decent attack and defense, so you'll probably be prioritizing field fighting the most, and that would probably be your greatest strength, is fighting in the field. So, it just depends what you really want to do. There's no best unit, although cavalry is kind of the meta because it's easiest to build around cavalry. But if you're a decent spender, if you're spending a little bit and then keep playing a lot, make it to the late game, by that point you'll be able to switch probably into whatever unit type you want, as long as you've kind of had that unit type in your mind all along and you've sort of been at least building to it a little bit. So in the long run, you'll be able to pick whatever you want, but probably starting out, just go with cavalry. So that's units and unit counters. I don't think there's really much else to say about units. So ages. Um, in Game of Empires, it's the way that we progress our account is a lot different than the way that you progress your account in Rise of Kingdoms, for example, or other similar 4X games. So in other similar games, you'll choose a building. It'll start out at level 1. You'll upgrade it. It'll take a certain amount of time to upgrade. And then you'll have like an academy where you do your research that'll look similar to this. But in Game of Empires, basically each building you can kind of think of as its own academy. So you can click any building. We can click our town hall and see that it has its own research separate from anything else. And it has a huge tree of research. It's no joke. It's not just a little tiny research tree. The academy, of course, has a research tree. The resource buildings or the resource warehouses have their own research tree. The castle. The castle is where you make once you finish your castle construction, that's when you unlock your unique unit research, and then I think later on you have to upgrade your castle more, and then you unlock your unique units. I haven't made it that far yet, so I don't know exactly. I can only really tell you what I know, of course. And so, when you upgrade any of the research in any of your buildings, you'll get prosperity. And when you get enough prosperity, you'll promote to the next age. There's 13 ages. You'll start out at the Neolithic age, and you'll start out with your town hall, house, farm, and some resource warehouses. You'll get enough prosperity from upgrading your research in each of those buildings until you have enough prosperity to promote to the Copper Age, and then you'll unlock the ability to construct new buildings. Then you can build those with your villagers and then start performing research in those buildings to keep getting more prosperity to promote to the next age and the next and the next. Then you'll start unlocking the ability to research the technology that allows you to construct defense towers and other new buildings. You'll keep progressing. You'll unlock the temple, which is where you can make priests, which have a long-range heal. Those are some really cool units. I really like those units. I make use of them a lot. You'll unlock the blacksmith, where you can forge gear. You'll unlock buffs, but you'll have to perform the research. Actually, what you're doing when you upgrade to a new age, you're not unlocking this stuff, you're unlocking the ability to produce this stuff, or the ability to unlock this research and then start it. So then you'll promote to the early castle age, the high castle age. You'll unlock your unique units at age 10, which is the late castle age. Oh, that building looks cool. I guess that's what our castle's going to look like once we get to the late castle age. That's sick. I like that. You'll unlock more defense towers, higher tier units, and so on and so on and so on until you make it to the latest stage. And then what I assume will happen, probably, is that later on, the developers will introduce new ages, age 14, 15, and so on, and then we'll unlock new buildings and units and all that stuff, but we'll worry about that once it shows up. Okay, so then you've got your buildings. I briefly went over them, but there's some buildings that I want to touch on. I'm not going to go over every single building. That's not super important. But there are a few buildings that I really want to talk about that are important, like the depot. So very new, fresh players will try to construct their depots and their frontier camps in their base, and then they'll come to the Discord and be like, I can't place my depot or my frontier camps. What's going on? And well, that's because these don't go in your base. They go outside of your base. You construct your depot next to resources. Actually, I need to construct one right now, so I guess I'll just go ahead and do that. You can construct a depot, send your villagers to build it, and then once they're done building it, they'll automatically start gathering the nearest resources, or you can allocate them directly to the specific resources that you want the most. So for in this example, there's food and wood here. If I wanted the food but I didn't want the wood, I would just click the wood and send my villagers to that, obviously. But if you just have your villagers go build the depot, they'll just start gathering whatever's around as soon as the depot is completed. And then once that resource is depleted, they'll go on to the next nearest one of any type. But if you send your villagers to a specific type, like if I directly make them collect this food right now, then once this food node is depleted, they'll go on to the next nearest food node. So if you're aware of those specifics and how to make your villagers gather exactly what you want them to gather, that just, makes your life a little bit easier. You can gather what you want when you want more easily with that knowledge. So hopefully that's useful to you. And then we have the frontier camps, which are the same concept. You don't build them in your base. Oh, I have 4 out of 4 right now. You don't build them in your base, you build them on the map. And they act basically as a portal. You go home, man. They act basically as a portal. You can instantly send your troops here. So I'll just demonstrate that right now. I can move my troops somewhere near my frontier camp, and they'll automatically go from the frontier camp to that location, since the frontier camp is much closer than my base, so I can get there super quick. Or I can just select the frontier camp and send a unit out of it that way. And so you'll use your frontier camps to place them near the hero statues, like this one right here, and you'll challenge the hero. Once you complete the challenge, a countdown will begin. Once the countdown is complete, you can challenge the next level. And there's these hero statues all over the map. So whatever zone you start in, I think there's 4 in each starting zone. So make sure you use all of your frontier camps. You'll start out, I think, with only 2 frontier camps, and then you'll unlock a 3rd and a 4th. So make sure you're making use of all of your frontier camps. You can see that I've got 4 out on the map right now, and I always do. Because if you're not making use of your frontier camps and you're not hitting those hero statues, and you can also place your frontier camps at your main alliance citadel so that you can quickly and easily get your troops to the alliance events, like the challenge spire. I was saying something else there too, but I cut myself off now. I forget what it was. But anyway, it probably wasn't that important. Let's just move on to the map. The next thing we'll talk about is the map. Like I just told you, there's hero statues all over that you need to pay attention to and complete their challenge whenever you can. And I like to think of those as additional research queues, basically. You want to always have your hero statue challenge cooling down so that you can go on to the next stage as soon as possible. And so you've got your hero statues on the map. You've got ports on the map. Actually, we'll not talk about those yet because that's the tier 2 region. Let's talk about the starter regions first. So you've got 4 hero statues per starter region, I believe, and you'll have a ton of these tents on the map. When you're exploring the fog in your starter region, you'll get these pop-ups at the bottom right, which allow you to click them and go straight to the new tent that you've just discovered, and that makes exploring these tents and vision stones so much easier and quicker. But at some point, all of the fog and all of the other starter regions will be removed. This was my starter region. That's why all of these are discovered, and then all of these ones aren't. So I started here, uncovered all of the fog here, got all of the tents here, and then this was still covered in fog, and at some point all of the other starter regions' fog just instantly disappears. And then you're left with all of these tents, and in this case, you don't get the little pop-up anymore because all of these tents are just automatically discovered, so you don't get a pop-up that you've recently discovered them, which means unfortunately, you just have to click on each of them individually like this, and it's going to zoom you into each one, which is going to be a pain in the butt, and it's going to make it take a lot longer. And I really wish we could just click these, and then it wouldn't zoom in, and then we could just click accept and move on to the next one, and it would be so much faster. But that's not how it works. But these can be highly lucrative, especially for free-to-play players. I highly recommend you free-to-play players get all of the tents that you possibly can. For spenders, it's less important because, of course, as a spender, you're getting a lot of bonuses that free-to-players aren't getting. And what these tents provide is really kind of nothing compared to what you can get with just a few microtransactions. But, you know, for everyone, we could all discover all of these tents and get quite a bit of significant bonuses out of it if we discover all of them. I mean, you know, discovering this one, that's only 10,000 wood. Sometimes I think you get some pretty decent stuff. Maybe let's check out one more and see if we get anything good. You know, 1 15-minute speed up, you can imagine that if you explore a ton of tents, that could really stack up, and just look how many there are. It's once all of the other starter regions open and you discover all of these tents like this, it's insane because it took me so long actually to discover all of the tents and uncover all of the fog in my starter region that I can't imagine how long it's going to take me to run around this the entire perimeter of this map and discover all of these tents. Not to mention, this fog is going to get all uncovered, and then there's going to be more, and then yeah, it just keeps going and going, and it's just like there's endless tents. So stay on top of your tents and get all of the rewards from them as you can, especially if you're a free-to-play player. But besides that, there's more important things to talk about when it comes to the map. So you'll see that there actually is docks that your alliance can take control of. The docks. I forget exactly what they get from that. I don't think it's too lucrative. I think it just pretty much allows you to like go across the water. But you can send units into the water at any time without controlling the docks, and you can send villagers in the water to fish. Let's see if we can find any fish. Well, yeah, there's some. So you can send your villagers in the water to fish. You can, let's say, for example, you had some units right here, and you want to send them right here. They'll go to the nearest dock, and they'll take a boat across the water, and they'll go to that destination, which will make it a lot faster than going around all of the water. So yes, you can enter the water, and your troops will automatically get on a boat. You don't have to go around. That's pretty nice, pretty nice. And then we have shrines. When your alliance controls a level 1 shrine, you get a little bonus. Level 2 shrine, you get a bigger bonus. And there's a ton of different types of shrines. Some give you attack bonuses, some give you resource collection speed, some give you hero experience. And so the main objective of your alliance at first will be to control the highest tier or highest level shrines that they possibly can within the region that they're in. And then your alliance's goal after that will be to make it into the next region and do the same thing there, until hopefully you can make it to the middle and take control of the ancient temple. And if you do that, then I guess you're the most dominant alliance on the entire server, and you kind of win at that point until I guess KVK comes out, or until a civil war breaks out, or who knows what's going to happen. But there was a ton of war on the first server that I played on. I think this is server 4, and the first server I played on was server 3. But on server 3, there was a ton of war once the tier 3 regions opened up. So you can probably anticipate the same thing happening in your server. I think once the tier 3 regions open up, there's just more incentive to fight. And so just keep that in mind. It's just a little piece of information that might be useful to you. So is there anything else that we need to talk about when it comes to the map? I mean, there's 8 starter regions, which are each separated by water. And the way that I kind of like to think of the map is like, it looks like a Rise of Kingdoms KVK map. And that's kind of the way that I like to think about it. So I started off in this region. Well, I'm in this region now, so I'll just use this region as an example. So let's say this was my starter region. Uh, I would think of this continent or this landmass as like one team, and then this landmass as another team. And of course, it's not always going to work out like that, and it's probably even most of the time it's not going to work out like that. But that's just kind of the general idea that I like to take on when I'm thinking of the map. And in the case of the northern landmass, they are working out like that, and the eastern landmass is also working out like that. It really just makes the most sense to team up with the other starting region that starts out on the same landmass as you, because then you go into the tier 2 region and you guys are friendly. You're not going to be fighting each other and tearing each other down, which means you're both going to be strong and be able to work together once it comes time to go into the tier 3 region. And then once that happens, it's like all of these other land masses, you could call them, are all teamed up. So you'll really need to be strong and have strong allies to survive in the tier 3 region, I think. So that's the way that I like to think of the map. Um, Basically, in Game of Empires, you start out in KVK, is what it feels like, which is really cool. And so, anyway, let's move on to the next part of the beginner guide. I think next we'll talk about heroes, I guess. So, if you've played a similar game, you already know. You've got your blue heroes, your purple, and your legendary. Your legendary are the best, the epics are pretty good, and then the blue ones, honestly, they suck. You got a pretty good amount of heroes in Game of Empires, and if you're a free-to-play player, you're going to want to use Hussar Elite and Praetorian Prefect, the only 2 blue heroes in the game, because in the very early game, you'll be able to get a lot of value out of these guys. They'll take you through the early stages of the campaign and help you get started on taking out stronger and stronger barbarians, and they'll take care of all of your early game PvE needs. But as a spender, if you're doing microtransactions, you can completely skip these heroes and just go straight into, well, straight into legendary actually, but also epic, of course. If you're doing microtransactions, Temujin will be one of the heroes that you'll want to focus on in the beginning, because you'll be able to get his badges from VIP chests, so you'll be able to easily buff up his skills. Hanzo is another hero that you'll want to focus on if you're doing microtransactions, because he's also a cavalry hero. He's really good, and you can get his badges from, let's see if I can remember. Yeah, from the limited offer. You can get 10 of his badges per day for $5 per day, which is pretty pricey, but some people just have a lot more disposable income than some others of us, and that's pretty much nothing to them. So for those guys, F you. I wish I could buy Hanzo every day. um, okay, so you'll get your Joan badges every day from completing your campaigns. Make sure you complete the highest level campaign that you possibly can as often as you can. And it doesn't matter if you don't 3-star it. Of course, you want to 3-star as many of them as you can. But if you can't 3-star, then just keep going until you just can't even beat the stage at all anymore. That way you'll get as many, what are these things called? Campaign points. That way you'll get as many campaign points as you possibly can, which means you'll be able to get hopefully 3 Joan of Arc badges per day. And Joan of Arc is a great support hero. At some point in the early game, it doesn't take too long to unlock the temple, but at some point you'll unlock your temple, which will allow you to train priests. And Joan of Arc is going to be great at leading those priests. And those priests are so awesome to use. Let me just show you how it works real quick. So let's say I'm killing barbarians with my main army. I can just select my main army, throw some priests in the mix, and it's just that simple and easy. My priests will follow my main army endlessly until I tell them to stop or until they die, and they'll just always follow and keep healing. Now, the range of the heal exceeds the range of the buff, so as you can see, if I stay here and I keep healing, eventually my priest army's skill will go off right now, and I'm out of range to provide that buff to my main army. So if you're using priests and you have heroes that have buffs like Joan, or Cleopatra also has buffs, if you're using either of those heroes in your priest army, then to get the most effect out of your priest army, you'll want to make sure that your priest army is close enough so that the buff can take effect. So just move a little bit closer, restart the heal, easy, just like that. Alright, so that's priests and Joan. Like I said, microtransaction, or, well, pay-to-play players will want to invest in Temujin, Hanzo. Everybody can invest in Joan. You might open up some gold chests and find some other legendary heroes, but I can't really make any recommendations on too many of them now, because the only ones that I've really looked into extensively would be Hanzo, Temujin, and I know the basics of the other heroes, but I guess I'll save that for another video. I shouldn't really dive too deep into that right now. This video is already probably way too long as it is. But that's a little bit of information about the heroes and priests. What else should we talk about? The purpose of this beginner guide is to just give you basically a general overall information dump so that you can understand pretty much all of the basics and fundamentals about the game. So I'm not trying to go too deep into any one specific topic, but I want to give you an overall breakdown of all of the systems in the game. So we're going to touch on everything, and there's a few more things to touch on. Hopefully you're still with me. This isn't the most organized guide, but I'm trying my best. It's unscripted. I figured I'd try to do it unscripted this time, so I hope it doesn't suck. Need to start my trade. All right, what's the next topic we're going to talk about? Probably alliances. I'm going to assume that you're just completely new to this genre and you've never played Rise of Kingdoms or any other similar games, so I'll just go through all of the fundamentals, and if you've never played any game like this, you should come out on the other end of this understanding how the alliances work in this game, hopefully, if I don't suck at explaining it. So, alliances, let's see. Your alliance's main goal is to control as much territory as possible and the most lucrative territory as possible. So your alliance will be able to construct trading posts. Let's see. So your alliance will place down a citadel at their first trading post. That will be basically their hub. And all of the alliance events that your R4 and R5 begin will always start around your citadel. So it's a good idea to have a frontier camp right next to the citadel so that you can quickly and easily get there whenever a new alliance event starts. That's why you see all of these frontier camps around the citadel. And so as a new starting alliance, you'll have your citadel once you place it, and then once you do that, you'll be able to take control of any adjacent villages and turn them into your own trading posts. The more trading posts you have, the more you can get out of alliance trades, which is just you press a button to start your alliance trade, and then automatically a trade caravan goes out of your city and starts hitting up all of the alliance trade posts within your alliance. Once they're done, they'll come back to your base and you'll get all of these rewards. You can do that twice a day, and the more I don't remember if I already said this, the more trade posts that your alliance has, the better rewards you get. Now there's other buildings that your alliance can construct, like an alliance barn, sawmill, quarry, and alliance iron. Should say probably alliance iron mine, but whatever. And so those are pretty self-explanatory. I probably don't even need to say it, but just in case, I'll let you know that these are just buildings that your alliance can construct, and then you can send your villagers there to gather their respective resource. So the alliance barn will give you food, the sawmill will give you wood, etc., etc. I'm sure I don't need to explain that to you. I'm sure you're fully aware. And then you have your challenge spire. Your alliance will place your challenge spire. Actually, this is where the challenge spire event occurs, but I think there's there's definitely other alliance events that will spawn at your alliance citadel. But for the challenge spire, Your alliance will construct this. Actually, I might be wrong about that. The Spire event might also spawn around the Citadel. I don't remember exactly, but you'll go to the Spire before the Challenge Spire event starts, and you'll be able to donate horns. You'll get horns from barbarian camps. Yeah, just barbarian camps, I think. And so do barbarian camps, get horns, and then once you see that the Challenge Spire event is upcoming, you'll be able to donate your horns. And the more people that donate horns and the more horns you have, the higher level Challenge Spire you can challenge, and the more you can get out of the Challenge Spire event. But when you level up your Challenge Spire event, the damage amplification of the Challenge Spire event will increase, and so it will become more challenging. Just keep that in mind. Your alliance can also construct defense towers, which our alliance hasn't constructed any yet, which is probably a good thing, because if we did, we'd probably just end up having to deconstruct them and put them somewhere else. So I'm really glad we haven't made any of those yet. I think that's probably a good play, because you probably want to hang on to these until you know that you can place them in a spot where you're actually going to get value out of them. For example, let's say the tier 3 region opens up. We're near an enemy. We're building territory towards them. They're building territory towards us. We're starting to get close to each other. Okay, now's a good time to start building defense towers on our territory, because we know that we're about to get into a war and we're probably going to be fighting on our own territory, and we're probably going to be able to take advantage of those defense towers. I wouldn't recommend you just place them willy-nilly wherever you want. Like, oh, let's put like 4 around our citadel. Let's put 1 over here. You know, don't do that. You don't need any around your citadel. If somebody's coming for your citadel and they you know, if they're coming for your citadel, you'll have enough time to notice it, and you'll have enough time to react. You don't need these defense towers pre-positioned before a war even breaks out. So don't waste your resources on them until you need them. And so we've got the citadel, the defense towers, challenge spire, resource stations, trading posts. I guess that's all of the alliance buildings. You can go to the alliance war tab to see whenever anybody in your alliance is hosting a rally against a barbarian camp or against any enemies. You can press stronghold to see all of the shrines that your alliance is in control of. Tech, always check in here and always donate to the recommended tech to help out your alliance with their tech. Always help out your alliance, and always make sure every time you start any construction that you ask for help, and your alliance members will click the help button, which also pops up down here, I believe, somewhere, right here, I think. And when they hit the help button, it'll reduce the time needed for your construction or for your research to complete. So always make use of that, of course. I'm sure all of you already know that. There's maybe 1 or 2 guys who don't know. So for you guys, hope that's useful for you. Anytime anybody in your alliance makes a microtransaction, there'll be a alliance chest that pops up in the alliance gift section under the rare section. Normal chests are chests that everybody in the alliance gets each time somebody in the alliance defeats a barbarian camp, and I think that's it. I think we only get those from barbarian camps, I'm pretty sure. And then these ones come from microtransactions. These ones have to be claimed individually because they want you to take a look at all of the microtransactions that everybody in your alliance has purchased, which will probably incentivize you to make more purchases as well. Just a little psychological thing to get us to spend more money. They're all over the place. Watch out. I already I already explained the trade thing. Is there anything else important? There's rankings. Don't worry about the rankings too much. If you're chasing the leaderboards, it's just going to make you spend more money, and it's probably going to stress you out. I like chasing the resource collection leaderboard, though. I've not invested too much in terms of microtransaction investment into like things that help resource collection, and I've still been able to get to rank 31 in resource collection. So I mean, that's pretty cool. This guy spent probably like 10K in the game or 20K or something insane like that. So he's rank 1 at everything. But dang, dude, if he's willing to spend that much money, then that's a huge amount of support that goes to the game, which means the game can continue to not only survive, but hopefully thrive and continue to develop and introduce new awesome features into the game. So this guy's incredible. I love this guy. You should too if you like Game of Empires. Um, he's so much stronger than anybody else. He's like, what, 4 times stronger? 3 or 4 times stronger than the rank 2 guy? That's insane. Anyway, I'm just rambling and talking about nothing now. There's equipment in the game. I'm sorry that this guide is so scattered and all over the place, but like I said, it's unscripted. So there's equipment in the game. Your equipment is not attached to your heroes. It's attached to your account, and the effects of all of your equipment is in effect at all times. So you don't need to equip it to your heroes. It's always taking effect. You'll get equipment. Let's see. You'll get equipment materials, which you can get from completing intel quests, which I forgot to go over. We'll go over that next. Barbarians and barbarian camps. You'll also get them from some events. We'll pass them out. And you'll get them from your, I think this is called the blacksmith or the forge. I recommend in here you always produce parchment, because parchment is what is the material that goes into the gear that increases your tech speed. And tech speed, in my opinion, is the most important stat. And so ideally, you could just let your equipment sit for a while when you're not like upgrading a tech, and then once it times to upgrade a big tech or then just the next tech or whatever, if you're doing your stable, then you might come to your equipment before you start the stable research and be like, oh, I have enough parchment to upgrade my Scholar's Band, and that'll increase my stable tech speed, and I'm about to start a new upgrade on my stable, so that's going to help. Let's go ahead and do that. That is the approach that I would take with my equipment. Of course, if you're not trying to min-max, you might just be a little bit more lazy and less strategic and be like, I like food warehouse tech speed, so I'll just get that now. But that's up to your personal preference and play style. I can't tell you how to play the game. I can only tell you how everything works, and I can only make suggestions to you, of course. So that was equipment. We talked about alliances. There's also an alliance event calendar, but in my experience, none of the alliance R4 or R5 make any use of this for some reason. I think this looks so useful, and it would make everybody's alliance more effective if they would schedule things and like schedule, for example, we had the Purge for Peace event recently, which is where you have to go out and you have a 5-minute timer, and in that time limit you have to kill as many barbarians as possible. Well, the best way to do that event is by teaming up with your alliance, going out, picking a good spot where there's a lot of barbarians, and killing the barbarians together at the same time so you can take them down much faster. Well, if we would have had times scheduled, I know everybody's in different time zones, so we could have scheduled multiple different times to accommodate all of those different time zones. So we could have here on this day, Saturday, we could have 3 things scheduled for Purge for Peace. One at like 0 UTC, one at 8 UTC, and one at 16 UTC, or something like that, and have those scheduled so that everybody could be like, oh, this is Purge for Peace is scheduled at this time, and this time, and this time, and this time works out the best for me, so I'll plan to be there at that time, and then I'll be able to team up with my teammates, and we'll be able to get this event done and probably rank very highly in the event and get a really good reward as a result, because we planned appropriately and we used our teamwork effectively and got the most points we could, But for some reason, no alliances have been using the event calendars. I've been in 2 or 3 alliances, and none of them have been using it. I don't understand why not. But it's there. You should use it. It'll probably help a lot. And what else do we need to go over? One way to gather resources faster if you have a lot of free time, or if you have the opportunity to check into the game very frequently. When you place your depots, you'll want to place them like this, as close to the resource as possible. And you'll want to pick one specific resource, which in this case I would pick the wood. And I would put my depot right here where it is, or right here maybe, and then I would directly put my villagers on this resource. And then as soon as it was depleted, I would deconstruct or demolish the depot, pick the next resources, and build right next to them, and gather them until they're depleted, rinse and repeat, do it again. But that would be the most effective way to gather the most resources that you possibly can as fast as you possibly can, because then your villagers would have the least walk time in between the depot and the resources that they're collecting. I don't do it that way. It takes more attention. It takes checking into the game more often. It takes more playtime to do that. It'll be worth it probably, I think, but that's not what I do. What I do is I pick a nice central location. Like this one's not that good. Ideally, it would be a little bit tighter. Like this tree would be a little bit closer in. This one would be a little closer, and this one would be maybe a little closer. But I could use this spot, and if I were to use this spot, I would build a depot right in the middle, and that would mean that when my villagers are done constructing the depot, they would go to whatever node, and whenever that node is done, they'll go to the next one and the next one. And this is a nice central location, which means I can leave this depot here for 8 hours, and my villagers will just be gathering the entire time. Now, of course, it won't be as effective as the former strategy that I just described, where you build your depot closer, but the central strategy takes a lot less attention, and so you can leave your phone or your computer or whatever for a lot longer. And so that's the reason that I like to use that strategy. So those are the two different gathering strategies. Pick whatever one works for you, depending on how much time you have and how much attention that you want to give to the game. Of course, we've got our bag. I mean, I'm just going through all of the functions and systems in the game. But I guess I don't really need to go through the bag. I mean, it's just a bag. What the heck is there to say about it? But always do your campaign missions. If you've ever played any similar games, you're already fully aware of what these are like. You just go in here, pick a mission, and then you'll be, I guess I'll just show you real quick. I won't actually do the mission, I'll just show it to you for a second. You'll go in here and it'll be just a solo mission. There will be some enemies, you'll set up your units and then take them down, and you'll have 1 or 2 minutes or whatever the time limit is for that specific mission. And if you complete it within all of the 3 parameters, so you'll have to complete it in a certain amount of time. You'll have to complete it with only, oh, you can see right here. You have to kill all the enemies, survive with, finish the fight with more than 70% of your troops, and finish within 80 seconds. And if you complete all of those objectives, you'll get 3 stars. If not, maybe you'll get 1 star, and that's okay too. 1 star is better than 0, and just go as far as you can. If you can't get 3 stars, that's fine. I think I already said that earlier, didn't I? Then you have your hero trial. We already talked about those. This is just the interface for the hero statues. You can go here and challenge, and it'll take you right to that hero statue on the map. Makes it a little bit easier to find those if you're having trouble finding them. Your hero showdown is kind of like the campaign, but it's just a PvP mission. You can skip the battle. You don't have to actually watch it, or you can watch it, and if you watch it, you might learn something insightful that'll help you rearrange your unit placement or reconfigure your troop types within your armies or whatever, and maybe you'll win the next fight. But I always just skip the battle, and then it just instantly you lose or you don't. You can do that 5 times a day, and then you'll get some items that will allow you to do it additional times sometimes. So just always make sure that you do this 5 times a day so you can get all of your rewards for this. You'll also have to set up your defense, and set up your defense with the best units you can, with the best placements you can. And so if you do that, then less people will defeat you. Like you can see, this guy selected me. He was like, I can probably beat that guy. Turns out he could, and he did. And so I lost points. That means I'll rank less highly, which means I'll get less rewards. And so you want to have the best, strongest defense you possibly can, and make sure that you do this 5 times per day and get as many points as you can. Now there's one big tip that I can tell you to help you get the most points out of this as possible. It's that whenever you are at this screen, all of your opponents are listed in order of how many points you'll get out of them. The first option will give you the most points. As you can see in this case, I'll get 1,700 points if I complete this one. If I do the next one down, I'll only get 1,640, and then I'll get less if I do the next one, and less until you get to the bottom, which should typically be your easiest opponent, but will also give you the least amount of points. So you always want to try to fight the opponent on the list that's highest up on the list. But of course, in this situation, me being 1.5 million power and this guy being 1.9 million power, I wouldn't fight the dude who's first on the list because he's probably going to beat me. So I'll look down at the next one. I probably can't beat that guy either or that guy, but I definitely can beat this guy. So I would challenge him and I would get 16, 14 points out of it. Um, and that would be much more effective than challenging this guy and only getting 1600 points out of it. And all of that would be way less effective than challenging this guy. That would be the best case scenario, but I'm just not strong enough to do that. So hopefully that helps you understand how to get the most points out of your hero showdown. Then you have Legacy of Thermopylae. That's not in the game yet. I don't know what that is. You've got your daily quests, of course. Always complete all of your daily quests. It'll give you big rewards that you don't want to miss out on. Shouldn't be too difficult to do that every day. It's just basically you play the game, and as you play the game and do your daily things, you'll pretty much just complete this without even thinking about it. There's other quests that you can claim. You'll pretty much just complete those as you go on, just the same as the daily ones. I never really look at these. It's just like they get completed as I play, and I collect the rewards, and it's pretty cool. So next, let's talk about villagers, because if you're brand new to the game or if you haven't even played it yet, you were probably looking at the depots when I was describing them, and you were looking at the villagers, and you were like, what the hell's going on here? This is way different than any of the other similar games that I've played. So in this game, sorry, excuse my voice, it's getting a bit scratchy now. So in this game, instead of using your heroes and troops together, like in other games, you'll actually have dedicated units that their sole purpose is to gather, and those are your villagers. You have normal standard villagers, like this one, and then you have super villagers. Super villagers, where do you think those come from? Of course, those come from microtransactions. And you can unlock the first 3 for $5 and then another 3 for $10. And I'm unsure if when you keep going on through the ages, eventually you unlock the ability to hire more super villagers. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I'll have to get to that point in the game before I can know for sure. Or I guess I could ask somebody else. Maybe I'll do that. But anyway, you have standard villagers and super villagers. Super villagers, I think they have 30% increased resource collection speed and 30% increased movement speed and 10% increased resource load. I'm pretty sure that's what they have, but I might be wrong about that. It's something like that. They're quite a bit better than the standard villagers, but anyway, you'll start out with, I think, only like 5 villagers or maybe 10. And as you progress through your town hall research, you'll unlock the ability to construct more houses, and your houses each allow you to house 3 villagers. Same as your super houses, they each give you 3 super villagers. And your villagers can be killed by other players. They have HP, they have attack, defense, and all of the other stats that any other units have, and you can upgrade all of those stats in your town hall. And the reason that those will be useful is for hunting. You can hunt docile creatures like this zebra right here, and they'll be super easy. You can just send any of your villagers, standard or super, will be good enough to take down any docile creature, because when their temperament is docile, that means they won't attack you back. They'll just basically let you take them down and take their meat. But then there is fierce animals. Let me see if I can find an example somewhere. There's fierce animals like this boar here. If you sent one standard villager to try to take down this boar, that villager would get killed. And then if you tried to send one super villager to this boar, well, I haven't tried that myself yet, so maybe it would work. But I think probably not, because these things are pretty buff. They can take down at least a couple normal villagers. And so when you want to take down a fierce animal, you'll send your villagers right next to the animal. You'll send like 5 or however many you think you'll need to kill it. And then once all of your villagers are here, you'll send them to the fierce animal so that they'll all get there at the same exact time and be able to take it down together. Hunting isn't something that you need to do ever, except when there's events for hunting. So sometimes you'll get an event that'll be like, each day for 5 days, hunt 10 animals a day to get these points that you can exchange for whatever. Or you'll have an event where some caravan will come to your city and it'll give you like 3 quests. And when you complete one quest, you'll get a new one, so you'll always have 3 quests to choose from in there. And you'll choose one, and the quest will have you go hunt a certain animal and get that animal's chit, which is a weird word that I have no idea what it means, but that's like the animal's fur, basically, or a piece of the animal's fur or something like that. And so I never really hunt unless I have to for an event. You can hunt to get meat or food, I mean, but you'll you probably don't need to do that. You probably get more than enough food just from sending your villagers to your farms or from collecting bushes on the map. But there's hunting and animals for you, just for your knowledge purposes. Now you know. Um, what I recommend doing with your villagers is like I have here. Send one per farm that you have. You'll start off with, I think, only one farm, and then you'll unlock more as you go on. And so, however many farms you have, send one villager to each farm. And then use your depots to gather wood and stone on the map. In the very early game, just stone is, or I mean, just wood is what you need mostly. But soon after that, you'll start to need stone as well. So in the very early game, for the first, I don't know, week or a couple days or week, you can just focus on wood, and then you can start incorporating stone as well. But often, at least for me, the way that I gather, I just put a depot in a central location and have them gather all the resources around. And so sometimes there will be stone nearby, sometimes there will be wood nearby, and they'll be mixed together. And so you just put your depot in a good place where there's the resources that you want, and your villagers will just gather all of the resources in the vicinity, and you'll end up gathering stone. Sometimes you'll end up gathering food even though you don't really want to, but it's nearby, so your villagers will just end up getting it anyway, and that's fine. But what you really want to avoid when you're out here gathering is the iron. I'm sure probably at some point in the game that'll change, and maybe in the late game you'll need a lot of iron, but in the early game and maybe even in the mid game, maybe not until the late game or even the very late game, I'm not sure about that, but not for a long time. We won't need iron for a long time. And it takes a long time to gather a little bit of iron, and so if you put your depot right here and your villagers are gathering iron, I think that's a waste of time. And so if you think you found a good spot and then you're like, oh wait, there's an iron node here or an iron plot or whatever, suddenly that spot becomes much less desirable and you should pick a new spot. Yeah, that's probably my main tip for gathering for you. Oh, intel. At some point you'll unlock your academy and then you'll unlock your intel missions. You can go here and select the handshake icon is the icon for a villager mission. So if you select this mission, it'll cost 50 energy to accept any intel mission. And in this case, we have a villager mission. So we can deploy a villager to this spot to complete the intel mission. And the villager that I choose is always one of the villagers that's on my farm. That way, once the villager is done and he returns to my city, he'll be right next to the farm, and I'll be able to quickly and easily put him right back to where he needs to go. On the other hand, if I chose somebody who's on a depot, the way that I usually like to split up my villagers between the depots is evenly. So I'll have like 4 villagers on one depot, and then 5 on another, and 5 on another. And that just makes sure that none of the that makes sure that all of the depots get like their full duration. Their full duration will be effective, if that makes sense. So say for example I had 15 villagers on one depot and then only like 2 on another and 2 on another. Well, the one with 15 villagers on it would run out of resources in its immediate area fast because you have a lot of villagers there, and then those villagers would just end up standing around while the depot is still up and it still has like hours left in its duration, you know? So in that case, you would be wasting a lot of villager efficiency, and so ideally, you'll split up your villagers evenly between each depot. And so to avoid having to figure out which depot that your villager needs to go back to after he completes an intel mission, just send your farmers on the intel missions, and then once they get back to your city, you can just put them right back on the farm super easy because they're right next to it, or they they might even be standing right on top of it. Um, chapter missions. Always complete your chapter missions whenever they pop up. They will reward you with the items that you need. The scroll of castles to upgrade your castle tech, I mean. So I have access to a tech research here, and I can't upgrade it anymore. Oh, I can. But if I didn't have any of these, then I would complete the current campaign that I'm on, the current campaign chapter, and then I would get more of these and then be able to upgrade this further. For spenders, you guys are going to want to take advantage of your VIP chests. That's where you'll get your Temujin hero badges. This is one of the best ways to spend your money in this game. You can get your Hanzo badges from the limited offer, and actually I have a spending guide video, so I guess I won't go over the spending strategies. Is there anything else important that I'm forgetting to mention? There probably is, and I'm sorry that this was such a scatterbrained guide, but I really hope it's been useful for you. Let me think. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? There's the monument where you can see all of your kingdom objectives. For example, this is a personal objective, the top one, I think. You'll personally have to defeat 10 level 4 plus barbarian camps, and then 20 level 24 plus barbarians. Okay, so this is a personal kingdom objective. Sometimes the kingdom objectives are more like kingdom based. So it'll say like once all players on the kingdom get to a certain age, then everybody in the kingdom gets a reward. Yeah, 100 players promoted to the Iron Age, stuff like that. And then you'll get rewards, and then pay attention here to see when new higher level shrines will unlock. Pay attention here to see when the fog will get cleared, and when other new things will get unlocked, like camps and docks. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting something, but I'll probably not even upload this. I'll probably make a complete new scripted guide anyway because I think this is too scatterbrained. But I think that's basically, I hope I'm not forgetting something. Anyway, yeah, I think that's basically it here. I can't really think of anything else. I really hope that was useful for you guys. I hope it's helpful, and if it was, don't forget to drop a like, a nice comment if you will, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm making Game of Empires guides constantly, and I'm constantly updating the GOE wiki at goe.fandom.com, so make sure you check that out. There's a bunch of static content there that you can check out if you want to get more information about all of the units. Actually, I can just show you. This is the wiki right here. There's information about all of the fundamentals in the game, including information about the civilizations, units, ages, buildings, the map, epic heroes, legendary heroes, alliances. There's a hero spotlight, which is like deeper information about this hero, and I'll make more of those. There's information about some events, and I'm adding to this frequently as I come across the events and learn about them. Got some guides here, some tier lists. So goe.fandom.com, check it out. It's worth your time. There's a lot of valuable information there. Anyway, this outro is way too long already, so that's it for me, guys. Thanks for checking it out. Peace. Have a good one.